Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. On behalf of OTC Markets, we are very pleased you have joined us for the Precious Metals and Critical Minerals Conference. Our next presentation of the day is from Galloper Gold. Please note you may submit questions for the presenter to the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for a one-on-one meeting by clicking Book a Meeting in the top toolbar. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Hratch Jabarian, Chief Executive Officer and Director of Galloper Gold, which trades on the OTC markets under the symbol GGDCF and on the CSE under the symbol BOOM. Welcome, Hratch.
Greg, thank you. Hello, everybody. Appreciate everybody joining us today, and I'm looking forward to a very productive 30 minutes here. Thank you to the organizers for allowing us the opportunity to present. As Greg mentioned, my name is Hratch Jabarian. I am the President and CEO of Galloper Gold, based out of Newfoundland on the East Coast in Canada. Just quickly, pretty straightforward, forward-looking statements. Anything I say is not an investment advice. You can read this at your leisure later on. Gold and copper. Obviously, Galloper Gold is a gold-focused exploration company. We are based in eastern Newfoundland, eastern Canada, on the island of Newfoundland. But our property, aside from gold, has a lot of copper prospects we are looking at, a lot of anomalies. Of course, right now, some of you may be aware that the price of gold is reaching new highs, and copper as well is in high demand. So that is reflecting the interest in companies like us. So today we will focus on what is happening on Galloper Island, which is our flagship property. For those of you who might not be familiar with Newfoundland, this is the map of Newfoundland and Labrador on the east coast of Canada. Newfoundland is consistently among the top-ranked mining jurisdictions in the world by the Fraser Institute. It is a very, very mining-friendly region. As you can see in the middle of the map, there is Galloper Island in close proximity to Deer Lake, Corner Brook, Stephenville are the major towns close to it. Galloper Island itself is an island on freshwater lake. And as you can see, very close to the Equinox, 7.9 million ounce former Marathon discovery, which just went into production recently, and we are just south of Firefly Metals, which is making some moves recently, and NFG, which recently bought out Maritime Gold, which has gone into production this month. A little bit about Galloper Island. This is a close-up of Galloper Island. Galloper Island itself is 122 square kilometers uninhabited land. So nobody lives on Galloper Island. I have seen some black bears. I have seen some moose, but that's about it. The island itself, as I mentioned, is 178 square kilometers, which is roughly 70 square miles. And we control 122 square kilometers of that. Now, in regards to the rest of it, there are some non-mineralized sections of the island which are no interest to us. Thus, we have not applied for the claims. Nobody else has any claims on Galloper Island. Our claims include you see an area there where it says LPSC deposit, which is the Lunch Pond Southeast extension. That is an area that covers 1,926 hectares, and that area contains a 43-101 resource with a minimum of 178,800 ounces. So even though we are a very early stage explorer, just getting started here, we already have a 43-101 resource on our property. Just a little bit of history and context for demineralization on Galloper Island. So gold mineralization occurs most of the length of the island, and the historical exploration, which I mentioned, focused on the Lunch Pond area with about 10,000 meters drilling, give or take, that developed the previously mentioned Lunch Pond Southeast Extension resource. The recent history on the island is in October of 2024, we initiated a prospecting and drilling program. We drilled 6 holes, about 1,400 meters in total, on 3 sections, and we hit mineralization almost 100% on the holes, excuse me. And in 2024, the government of Newfoundland announced the request for proposal for the previously mentioned Lunch Pond Southeast Extension plot of land, which holds the 43-101. We were very aggressive in submitting a proposal to the government, and in January of 2025, in January of 2025, we submitted our proposal to the government, and in July of 2025, Galloper Gold was awarded the Lunch Pond South Extension claims with the 43-101 resource on it. In regards to the Lunch Pond South Extension, as mentioned, 178,800 ounces on a resource, 43-101 resource. That is based on 10,000 meters of drilling in 2012. The values used for the 43-101 was 2017. Gold price was $1,200 at the time. So as you can appreciate, a lot has changed since. As you can see here, cutoff grade for the open pit mine design was 0.5 with a 1.72 grams per ton average within approximately a million tons of indicated resource, and with a 1.59 grade per ton average within almost 2 million ounces of inferred resource. And then for the underground, 2 grams per ton cutoff for the underground mine design, with almost a 3 grams per ton AU average, with a 36,000 indicated resource, and with the 2.78 grams per ton average within a 373,000 tons inferred resource. So again, on very limited amount of drilling, a quite interesting resource. And what's very, very important to mention here is that drilling stopped in 2012 due to lack of funds, and they stopped drilling in mineralization, which, as you all know, you never stop drilling in mineralization. So we fully intend to pick up the drilling on this 43-101, and I'll talk about that shortly. Just a little bit about the geology on Galloper Island. I won't get too much into it. The presentation will be available, and you can look into it afterwards. And of course, email me or text me your questions. But the geology has been very, very favorable on the island in the host of felsic rocks. The Kettle Pond Formation, as you can see, it's the mustard-colored unit here. Mafic rocks, the Tuckamore Formation, which is the light green area you see on this graphic, and some sedimentary rocks within that formation. The basal conglomerate, the pale yellow area. So these are all kind of embedded within the 3 units where we find gold mineralization on Galloper Island. We've got the red dots you see are some of the historical drill holes that have been put in the Lunch Pond South Extension. The 2024, the green dots that you see towards the middle section of the graphic are the 2024 drill holes that we drilled, which I previously mentioned. That's about 7 kilometers, so about 4.5 miles from the historical 43-101. So what we have is the 43-101 resource about 4.5 miles away, about 7 kilometers away. We drilled, had 100% hit rate, and we are clearly seeing a lot of mineralization at grade along the length in between the 2 areas, between Lunch Pond South Extension and Lucky Smoke. Obviously, this requires a lot more work, but extremely, extremely promising with the limited amount of work that has been done. Moving on here, here's a cross-section that was created from historic data, highlighting the geology and the controls of the mineralization. It's important to note that the ore zones come with ribbons with multiple intersections across what would ultimately be mined as an open pit. And on the right, you can see the modeling that came from the technical report, which was done in 2017. Aside from the Lunch Pond South Extension resource, the 178,000 ounces, and the other prospects that we worked on, there's a lot of work to be done at Lucky Smoke, which requires additional drilling also. Moving on, and I'll speak a little bit about the drilling of 2024 here at Lucky Smoke, as mentioned, about 4.5 miles to the east of the Lunch Pond South Extension resource. Along the mineralized trend here, you see basically the other end of the present development. We encountered the Lucky Smoke area. So 1,400 meters, 6 holes, 3 sections, and we had samples return up to 20 grams per ton. And then the zone extends to about 800 meters at present to 260 meters to depth. So, and it's open along the strike and open along the dip at depth. And what we found was both, not unexpected, but also somewhat excitingly surprising. Here, there's a cross-section of the geology at Lucky Smoke, modeled at present understanding. Again, a lot of work needs to be done. On the right side in the yellow, you can see the felsic units tilted vertically. And then mineralization again occurs at the surface and down dip where we have intersected comparable values. One surprise we didn't anticipate had no superficial control over was an intersection of what we think is basal conglomerate continued up into the Lucky Smoke area. So very, very exciting potential that continues all the way. The mineralization continues all the way to the Lunch Pond South Extension. This is kind of a 3D map of the island surrounded by the water, by the lake, as you can see. Just to add a little bit of context, that we wanted to show this to you. And here you can see what you see on the top of the picture would be to the east of the island, which is the Lucky Smoke area. And then in the middle of the picture, the graphic, you see the Lunch Pond South Extension resource with the 43101, with about 7 kilometers in between of mineralization that is going to require quite a bit of work. What we don't mention here is, and I do want to mention, is that about 1.3 kilometers north, so about 0.7 miles, I guess 0.8 miles north of these two occurrences, while doing some work on the island, we discovered a previously totally undiscovered minimum 13 kilometer long copper anomaly, a potential VMS occurrence there, which we intend on doing quite a bit of work on in 2026. Excitingly, aside from all this, the power grid for all of Newfoundland actually runs right through Glover Island. So we have access to full power at any given time. We don't have any issues, as you can appreciate, for water or power. So this is a huge benefit that is there for us. Just a quick recap on Glover Island. So large-scale discovery opportunities within the property package that we have that extends 36 kilometers long, northeast, trending mineralized structures, both copper and gold. We have been awarded the 43101. So even though we have a very small market cap of $4.5 million Canadian right now, we actually have a 43101 resource that has a minimum of 178,000 ounces right now. We are just starting our marketing campaign, and we have realistically taken the last several months to structure the company to a point where we can move it forward. And I'll talk about that shortly here with a new board and a new structure, new share structure. And the 43101 basically that we have, springboards Galloper Gold to become a breakout play. Again, a very unusual early stage exploration company with a known 43101 resource, and of course, excellent geology with a large land package to significantly grow the resource. We think we can develop this to multiple potentials, multiple resource domains over the next 3 to 5 years. And we've put a very, very robust, aggressive 3 to 5 year plan together to take this project forward. Now, as I mentioned, we've taken the last few months to restructure the company. We have new shareholders that have come in from the US side, specifically South and West in the US. We have new investors from Europe, Frankfurt, Zurich, London. We recently had TSX listed DPM Metals, which currently has a market cap of almost $9 billion, come in as our largest shareholder. It was a strategic investment. Outstanding and issued and outstanding, 72.5 million shares. So we are tightly held. 54 million of those shares outstanding. So, and you can see there the options and warrants. So we've structured it in such a way that this gives us ample room to raise money as needed to take the organization forward. And of course, it does not hurt to have a $9 billion publicly TSX listed mining company as our largest shareholder. Leadership team, this is our executive management team. You can take a look at this later. We don't really need to focus on that, but we have a top-notch management team that we've put together. I want to focus on here Mr. Brian Sparrow, who's our Vice President of Geology and Exploration. He is a foremost expert on geology and mineralization in Newfoundland. He lives there very close to Galloper Island and has put a robust budget/plan to take us forward starting in Q1 of 2026. And then quickly with the board of directors, we have a whole new board of directors. This was one of my mandates when I took over as CEO about a year ago. Very key to note here, Dr. Ilya Garkov, who is the Chief Operating Officer of DPM Metals, formerly Dundee Precious Metals, who is on our board of directors. We are the only board he sits on. With my background of having worked with Dundee Precious Metals, currently DPM Metals after the name change, having worked for them for 11 years, obviously there's a relationship there. And Mr. Garkov has looked at our project and seen the potential and agreed to join our board, I believe about 7-8 months ago. We have Mr. Stephen Shea, who is a retired partner from Ernst & Young. Mr. Sarkisov, who is a very high net worth individual and a global entrepreneur who runs multiple businesses around the world. And Mr. Peter Lauder, who's our qualified person on our board. So with that, I will wrap up my presentation here. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to what we have to say. I have put out some availabilities. If you'd like to have some one-on-one meetings, please do go ahead and schedule at your convenience. And we will open it up for questions right now. Happy to answer any questions that we might have. And I see here we have several questions that have come in. So allow me to read some of these questions and answer as many as I can. All right, so one of the questions here, assuming an economic deposit can be delineated at Galloper Island, what are the challenges associated with building mining operations on the island, permitting, etc.? That's a great question. Thank you for the question. So pretty straightforward. We have a very, very mining-friendly government. Currently, for the exploration works, we have all the permits in place, including drilling and environmental. The government, direct meetings with the premier. We don't have governors here in Canada. We have premiers, obviously, provincially. Every indication has been given that they will push forward and support us. Newfoundland is trying to become the next Ontario, Nevada, Chile. From a mining perspective, they want to attract new investors and they want to make it easier for mining companies to move forward. We have seen that with Newfound Gold. Obviously, Equinox has come into Newfoundland with the purchase of the Valentine gold mine with the almost 8 million ounces there. So the government has taken every step to make it forward. In regards to Glover Island, the challengers are actually very limited. We have direct access by barge through mainland to Glover Island. There are roads that exist on Glover Island, gravel roads, but they do exist. And we are very, very close to the highway that goes from the north to the south and to the east of the island. And we have a very close proximity to the Stevensville airport and the port. So we don't anticipate any issues from a transportation perspective. And as I mentioned, the power lines are right there. And we are extremely, extremely excited with the potential that the island offers. And not to mention the Bayvert fault line, which we sit on, hosts 23 current and former operating copper and gold mines who are all in very close proximity to us. So I hope I have been able to answer that question. Another question here is, another question, and so it says, was the Q4 25 drill program deferred? And if so, how much drilling is planned for 2026? What is the average cost per meter for drilling? Again, another good question. Thank you for this. We have deferred our Q4 drill program to Q1 26. And the only reason we have done that is because, and I can share this, and I haven't shared it publicly before, but we had an unfortunate death within the group. The lead person who was leading this passed away suddenly because of a heart attack, and 6 months of good work that the gentleman had put in, unfortunately, had to be put on hold because of his untimely passing. So that's the only reason we have deferred our Q4 drill program to Q1. I anticipate that we will drill anywhere from 7,000 to 11,000 meters in 2026. And from a cost per meter perspective for 2026, we are very, very competitive. We have spoken to 9 drilling companies. We put a request for proposal out, and they are all in the same range, considering that we are on an island. It's about $100 a meter more than it would be on mainland for year one, because our year one drill program includes obviously a new camp for the team and the graders doing some work on the road building. And obviously, as of year 2, that doesn't come into play, and our cost per meter of drilling will go down. Let me try to get to some other questions here. So you recently ramped up marketing, including entering into a dedicated marketing agreement and presenting at multiple virtual conferences. What does success look like from a market structure perspective? More trading liquidity, tighter spreads, or specific institutional names on the register? I think really all. A lot of people have asked me as to why we didn't market the company before. As I mentioned, I took over as CEO of the company about a year ago, and there was a lot of work that needed to be done internally before we started doing external work. That included, fixing the structure, fixing the team, putting the right team together, building a board that would support us globally, not only locally. And that took a lot of time, which, as you can appreciate. Now, I've been in mining for 25 years, and as I mentioned, 11 of those were with DPM. So there was a lot that needed to be organized to get it done. So we anticipate that the results are from the marketing campaign, which we are just undertaking, as I mentioned, are going to support us in getting, better liquidity. And we don't have a lot of shares that trade, but we will try to get some liquidity through that, and obviously bring a lot more eyes, whether retail or institutional, to Galloper Gold, because I have no doubt through our very, very aggressive drill program, which leads into 27 to 28, we're going to be able to give the market something that virtually you wouldn't be able to do with about 40, 50, 60,000 meters of drilling. I've spoken with a lot of mining companies globally, by the way, as to how long does it take for them to come up with a 2 million ounce from a drilling perspective, 130,000 meters, 150,000 meters. 300,000 meters, we are very, very confident that we're going to be able to do that in much less of drilling, just because of the fact that we already have the 43-101 resource. I'm getting a lot of questions here, so I'm going to try to get to as many as I can. So I'll quickly touch on this one. You've highlighted that the Lunch Pond South Extension deposit sits within an 11-kilometer mineralized corridor with 17 prospects. What concrete steps are you taking in the next 12 months to move some of these historic showings towards drill-ready or resource stage targets? One of the first things we are going to implement as part of our drill program will be obviously to do the geophysics work, which we will start with, and then that will roll right into our drill program. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on the island, and we spent a little bit of time on the island recently. Our team was there kind of preparing for this, so there's a lot that needs to be done. One of the things we do intend on doing is that implement the whole program at once instead of going back and forth, to ensure that we are reducing costs to bring additional value to our investors. So we'll be starting with the geophysics work for sure. All right. Another question here is, so what specific follow-up work is planned on the historic prospects in 2026? More mapping and sampling, or are you prepared to drill some of them quickly? In all honesty, we are very prepared to drill some of them quickly, while continuously at the same time, we will do some follow-up work of sampling. But we are extremely ready to drill, especially at Lucky Smoke and Lunch Pond, because we know all the prep work has been done for those two targets, which include some other areas like Tomahawk and some recent areas we've identified. So we are pretty much ready to drill in those areas. Another question here is, can you talk about the strategic alignment with Dundee Precious Metals and how that relationship might or might not factor into future project level funding or M&A scenarios? You know, obviously I can't say too much about that. Everybody can make the connection. I used to work for them for 11 years. I have good connections there. Mr. Garkov is on our board. DPM did make a strategic investment. They are very familiar with our project. So let me leave it at that. I will leave it to the investor's imagination to ensure that I don't get into any trouble here. More questions coming in. You are also advancing a copper prospect within the Galloper Island project. How should investors weigh the copper upside relative to the gold story when thinking about valuation? I think the market doesn't even know about our copper project or copper potential, because it was a recent discovery, previously totally undiscovered on the island, even though, you know, people have been doing work on the island for the last 25, 30 years. So I think there's a lot there. There's a lot to be had. What Galloper Island is telling us is that it's not a one-stop shop. So it's not one resource, it's not one deposit, potentially multiple deposits on the island that could warrant something much, much bigger than anticipated in the future. So stay tuned for the work that's going to be done on the copper deposit, potential next year, and obviously we'll be releasing results as they become available. More questions rolling here. So let me try to get to at least one more, as we are almost out of time here. So you mentioned existing power lines on Galloper Island and relatively straightforward barge helicopter access. From an investor standpoint, what are the remaining infrastructure or permitting bottlenecks that could slow down a development decision? Right now, at this point in time, realistically, we have everything in place. We don't see or anticipate anything that will slow us down. The only thing is we need to get the financing in place in the very near future, finalize that, and then take the project forward. I'm seeing more questions coming in. I apologize, I'm running out of time. Please forward your questions and the organizers will send them to me, and reach out. There's my email on the last slide, harach@gallopergold.com. Happy to talk to you anytime. Thank you so much, everybody, for the questions and listening to what I had to say.